The last video we looked at detail lines, so this video we will look at regions, which actually contains detail lines, so it's kind of a build off the last video. So if you go to the Annotate tab, you can select this region. There is a drop down, but typically you'll just use Filled Region, or you can just click this normal button, or type in RG on your keyboard. So a region, again, involves lines. Now these lines have to be in a closed shape. So if you start drawing a bunch of lines, and you want to end it right there, it's not going to let you. You will get this error, says lines must be in closed loops. And just click continue. Usually it highlights those errors for you. As long as you close those loops, you are fine. And you can do different types of shapes that have closed loops within closed loops. Looks something like this. And of course, you can make other shapes outside of that one shape. So there's plenty of different things you can do with detailed regions. And getting into and out of the detailed region tool, all you got to do is double click onto the edge of one of these regions. And you have your checkbox if you want to finish, or the X if you want to cancel. Now you can edit the detail regions without actually entering the detail region tool. As you can see, you have little arrows on the edges of the region. You cannot move the vertices, but you can move the faces. Again, if you just double click back into the region, as I said earlier, you have lines that make the outlines, so you can actually change the types of lines. These are based on what we worked on in our last video. If I wanted to change those lines to pink, give it a nice cyan dash. You can have multiple different types of lines within your detailed region. And it doesn't even have to be the whole shape. Every single line in the entire region could be a different type. And this is what it will look like once you actually close out of it, depending on the type of line work that you use. Now let's look at how you can make different types of patterns. So you don't even have to double click back into it. You can. It'll kind of give you the same option in the Properties tab, but you can do it without. So all you have to do is go to, in the Properties, once you have your region selected, click on Edit Type. Typically what I would like to do is click Duplicate. That'll create a new region for you, so you don't have to worry about messing up a already existing region. So I'm just going to call this one, again, I always start with an underscore, and I'm just going to do cyan. And I'm just going to make it a plain cyan, so I'm just going to leave it as that. And now what I will do is change the colors. So there's two different types of patterns. There's the foreground fill pattern and the background fill pattern. So referring to this region right here, in this case, the foreground fill pattern is going to be that crosshatch, and it's going to be a black crosshatch. In this case, there is no background fill pattern, but if I were to make it blue, it would look something like what is shown on the screen because I have it selected. So you have two layers to every region. You have the foreground and the background, so you can have a pattern on the front and typically a solid color in the background. So because I want to do just plain cyan, all I'm going to do is click Solid Fill. It's one of the more typical settings you will use for filled regions. And then I'm just going to change the color to cyan. I can ignore the background. That's not going to do us anything in this case. And then there's this last option called masking. So what happens if you turn it on is any objects that are behind that region will be blocked. You won't be able to see them. If you turn off masking, you will be able to still see through that region typically. And I usually add a transparency in my visibility graphics, which I can explain in just a second. So good to go. I usually don't use masking, so leave that turned off. There we go. Now we have a solid blue region. And like for lines, I will just create one more example for you. So on my keyboard, RG. There's a new region, but now I want to make a different type of pattern. So I'm going to click Edit Type, click Duplicate. I'm going to call this one Yellow Hatch. And then what I will do is I will do a hatch, which is just, well, it's called a crosshatch technically, so you can get as picky with your naming conventions as you want. I will keep the black for the hatch pattern, and then for the background fill pattern, I will do solid fill, and I will make it yellow. And of course, as usual, as I mentioned, I will uncheck masking. Now, we have a lovely hatched yellow filled region. And as mentioned earlier, you can double click into that region. You can change the different types of lines. It won't actually change the pattern. If you want to change the pattern, you'll have to go back to edit type, and you will have to change the color. And I believe, yeah, you can change the line weight of that pattern. So I'm just going to make that 3. There we go. Now we have a hatch with a cyan blue at thickness 3 hatch line with a yellow background. And just to show you what a masking versus an unmasking region looks like, I'll give you an example. As you can see, this pattern to the left is a masking. If I go to the edit type, you can see the checkbox there. Is masking, which means you can't see the objects that are behind this detail region, but this is not masking, and you can see that you actually can see the objects that are behind the detail region. And like I said, I usually go to my visibility graphics, which is VV, and detail items is the item you're looking for. You can click on override the transparency for those. I usually put it at somewhere between 50 and 65%, so you can still see the objects behind. It kind of eliminates the idea of masking, but as you can see, the items behind this are still kind of faded out by the detail region that's in front of it, whereas these ones are purely black because they're not being masked. And one last thing that I forgot to note earlier is that your regions actually have a square footage associated with it, so you can use regions to help with quantity takeoffs, especially for floor square footage. As you can see, it's in the properties under area. And that's about it for detailed regions, so check out the next video for text.